Megan, thank you for joining me on the pod today. I really am excited to have you here with me.
Thank you for having me. I've been looking forward to this.
Yeah, it was cool to see you at the conference and kind of reconnect. After all these years, we went to grad school together, and then now to kind of be doing this same thing in the field in Charleston is really cool.
Yeah, it's special.
For sure. Yeah. Okay, so will you just tell everyone a little bit about you and what kind of has made you passionate about working with this population that you work with?
I guess to lead in with that, what would make me the most passionate is I was a former college soccer player. So sports growing up were a big part of my life. I don't ever remember talking about any kind of like mental health support or anxiety going through the, youth sports and then not even in college, and so I know it's come a long way just being able to even talk about the stigma of the mental health surrounding sports. But I went to college, Western Carolina, played soccer. And then after I graduated, I moved here. And like I always say, like most athletes, you don't want to give up the being in sports. So I moved here and I interned at the Citadel, which is, and then at the River Dogs and then back to the Citadel and finally figured out, that counseling was something I wanted to do. So I've actually been a school counselor for 12 years. So working in local high schools, virtual school. I did some coaching at club level, high school level. And then now I coach my kids. And so I'm dabbling in the youth sports as a parent and as a coach, which is still really fun because they're young, but I am really passionate about really just like learning the culture and really trying to make an impact in my community for the people who are in it now, but also for my kids who are going to come up. I really feel strongly about like trying to make it a better place for when they get there if they do decide to keep pursuing sports, because it's kind of, depending on who you talk to, it's kind of scary.
Yeah, you're right. I'm curious, just coming up as an athlete and then as a coach, I think it is kind of a natural progression, I think, to go into like counseling because, we're kind of wired to want to help people, want to motivate people, want to help people reach their goals or whatever. And so I'm curious, just as you've kind of come through it, you've now been a therapist for these years. You've also worked in schools and worked specifically with students. What are some of the problems that you've seen in coaching in youth sports, in like kind of this mental health around sports that you want to try to fix now moving forward?
The first thing that just came to my mind was burnout.
Oh, yeah.
Because the intensity starts so young now, like at 8, 9, you're being, like if you're not on the travel, you're behind. And just that narrative where I didn't even start playing soccer until I was 9 years old.
Yeah.
I played rec soccer at that point. So by the time they get to that point where they should be really starting to like give it 100%, which would be about like 14, 15 when, and research says too, that like, it really should be after puberty, right? Because you don't know what you're working with until your body is getting more developed, especially for boys. They're burnt out. So like by the time 15 comes around, that stud 12U player or soccer player or whatever, they're like, I don't want to do this anymore. And like the pressure that their parents put on them and to keep going and navigating the like, whose dream is this? And I think it's unfair to them because they are put in this mill to produce so young that when it really comes time to like where it really matters, they're struggling, and they're struggling with going forward. They're struggling with all the different aspects of being now a teenager, of what that looks like, the hormonal changes, the academic stress, the social pressure that starts hitting around like that 14, 15. So you're seeing a rise in anxiety, you're seeing a rise in depression, and what used to be an outlet for them now can be a really big root cause of the pressure of some of those, mental health struggles that they might be seeing.
Oh, that's so good. I talked to my college coach a couple weeks ago on the podcast, and one of the things that she um, kind of put along with that was how social media is a thing now. And like when we were coming up, um, we didn't even, I didn't have a Facebook account until I was like teaching. You know what I mean? Like it wasn't even a thing when I was a teenager. And so the kids to constantly have the opinions of other people at such a young age. So,
Mm-hmm.
Like all of that pressure, there's just not the freedom that I think we grew up with, just to go play and have fun, you
Yeah.
know.
Yeah.
All your
Yeah.
stats are on Game Changer. All your, you know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah. I had actually a client last week. I ran across this site on social media, and it was sort of like a PR site for high school athletes. And so I asked her about it. I was like, what is this?
Yeah.
And she's like, well, it's, explain what it was, that it's like a photographer. They're, publicizing pictures of athletes, and, it's a big thing, I guess, within the Charleston community. And she immediately says, and oh my gosh, there's a picture of me. I was like,
Oh.
well, I was like, you don't like that? And she's like, no, look how horrible I look.
Mm-hmm.
And I like, do you think about that? Like when you're playing, she's like, actually, I do. Like, I think about if there's going to be a picture of me that I'm not going to like.
Mm-hmm.
This particular picture, she's like, I don't like how my legs look.
Mm-hmm.
So then let's cycle that into another issue where we're now, not only are they worried about like they're playing their statistics, they're worried about how they look.
Yeah.
How they're photographed. Did that angle make me look fit? Did that angle make me look a little bit bigger?
Yeah.
And then
Yeah.
for everyone to see that now,
Just plays
hard.
into all these body
Yeah.
image things like
Yeah.
developmentally that are just right there at that age too. Yeah. Oh my goodness. Yeah. 100%.
Yeah.
And then kind of on a lighter note, like I know we laughed when we saw each other, but like, thinking about our sons and, all their chains and all their like, like I'm just thinking about my son and like his drip. Is that the right word?
Sounds about right. Yeah.
Just all the influence on them, I
Yeah.
think is my point, that like, I just didn't feel that, and I'm like you, like I didn't start playing my sport until I was in fourth grade, was the first time I ever played basketball organized. And you're right. There wasn't kind of this this system, this kind of memo that parents had. You got to get them started at 4 or 5 years old. They need to be in weekly lessons, like all of this, or they're going to be behind. This kind of myth of being behind. Yeah, lots of pressure out there that we did not have. So I'm just curious, like, how can we fix this? Is it fixable?
Is it fixable? I don't know. I think it
I don't know either.
really, it starts with educating the parents. I think it also starts with having, as a parent, making really wise choices of who you are going to allow as your coach, or almost like have that influence the
Yeah.
community around that particular team. And like, there's nothing wrong with investing in a team and going all in at a young age. I'm not saying that. I happen to be a believer in like multi-sport and
Yeah.
having to feel the pressure of specialization so young.
Yeah.
But I also know that that is a tough reality. And if I'm going to go this route, I'm going to make sure that my values are going to align with what the coach's values are, as far as like developing not just like a good player. Like I really want them to focus on being like a good human and like a good teammate, and all of those things are encompassing. So to circle back to what you're saying, I think, the more that parents can talk about it and talk about like the struggles and the pressures that they're feeling, and support the coaches who are doing the good work. Because now so many coaches, I have a lot of friends who are in some high level coaching positions around Charleston who are burn out so much that they've either quit or they are really considering, because the parents are putting so much pressure on. So if they're putting it on like a grown adult, what does that look like at the home? So that's a hard angle to go, because most of the time they're probably not aware, nor do they want to hear that they're doing something out of line. But it does affect the children. And so getting to more of like an education of kind of the pitfalls of what it can look like, between like what it looks like to have anxiety, whether it be sports performance specific, whether it just be like anxiety in general, because life, and it doesn't have to necessarily come from your sport, like you're living a life, you're in relationship, they're in school, they're, you know, things are happening. So being able to have a safe person to talk with. So parents, be like, if it's not the coach, like does your child have someone that they can really be real and authentic with, that they can share those fears, to that it doesn't grow into something bigger and lead into depression, lead into you know, suicide, that they can have that outlet for them earlier rather than later.
You know, as you were talking, I got this picture of just like being caught in a stream, you know, and just kind of you're in it and you're just moving. I'm thinking more of the parents, you know, and the responsibility then of the parents with the education piece to just kind of pause for a second and just be like, okay, let's look at this system. Let's look inward at ourselves. What's driving me as a parent? What am I like, you know, is it more for me? Is it more my fear of them getting behind? Is it just those pause moments, I think sometimes, because otherwise we do just tend to react to the culture that we're in. You know, we're in the stream.
And you're projecting whether you like it or not. We're all coming in this with history. And if you're, you know, I'll give an example. My husband played professional baseball and he played in college. And so his expertise level is very high. I played in college, you know, so like I'm higher than average as well. I would say that. And so with that, we are having to check ourselves constantly, and we're not even really in the massive throes of it. So we are constantly kind of, maybe more me than him, having those outward conversations of like, let's relax, you know, like you can come from being kind of at like a top level to like really get down to like the basics, to be like, are they having fun? Are they learning? That's got to be enough for right now. That other
Are
stuff,
they having fun?
it can come, like it may come or it might not come. And we have to be okay with that. Like it could, next year you could say, I don't, you know, this is not what I want to do anymore. And like, we have to be okay with that. We can say as a parent, like, man, I see all the value in doing all this, but at the end of the day, it can't be our dream. It can't be us pushing that. We support that, and we put them in position to fulfill whatever it is their dream is, and also being okay that it can change, because it more than likely will change. And we want a safe place for them to let us know when that does change, because that's where a lot of the tension comes, is when that dream has changed for the kid and they don't want to tell the parent.
Okay, let's go a little deeper with the parents. And I think first, before we give parents like maybe some tools that they can use, maybe just some, okay, if I'm a parent, how do I know if my child is experiencing some anxiety around sports? Like, what are some things that I might notice or that I need to be on the lookout for?
I think any sort of change in behavior or thought process. So example could be like, if they were always, the kid was like, okay to go to practice or games, and now all of a sudden they're giving you pushback. What's that about? You know, is it something going on in a team? Is it team dynamics? Is it a fear? Is it a mental block of performance? Like what does that look like? So a change in kind of behavior or approach to like what practices look like. In general, anytime I'm noticing a behavior of like sleeping more, are there eating habits changes? Are there things at home that you're noticing that you're like, this is not my kid, like this is not who they've been? it might be sports specific. It may have nothing to do with the support. It could just show up that way.
Yeah.
I had a client who came to me for a lot of aggression on the field. And so after digging in a little bit, it really had nothing to do with the soccer. It had to do with something completely separate. That is where he was showing up. Like that was his
Yeah.
outlet because he was frustrated, something he couldn't control. Well, guess what? I
Yeah.
can control how hard I go
Yeah.
into this tackle. And
Yeah.
that's where I'm going to let out that aggression. So, and that parent was smart. It's like, something's not really right, you know? So noticing just changes, whether it be at home or on the field, of behaviors, of attitudes, of even, or verbaling, you know, if they've been able to share their emotions, where some kids are gifted in that, some are not. And so being able to kind of like coach them in, well, how is that feeling? Like how, you know, you went from starting and now you're not starting anymore. Like, I know that's probably a hard thing. Like, how are you feeling about that? And giving them an opportunity to share in a space that they're not going to get in trouble for, and it's not their coach. They can't say, yeah, it's really disappointing. Like, I really think I should be starting. Whereas that conversation can be healthy and loving, and it doesn't have to be like, yeah, that coach is really out to get you, you know, go against that. But like, okay, this is the reality. Playing in sports are hard. There's a lot of things you can't control. And like the life lessons that you get to learn from being a part of a sport young, like will go with you if a parent can kind of acknowledge what those are and what would be considered like transferable skills for life after the sport. So like, I see you're like really dedicated and you're really focused in at practice, like those, you know, and highlighting that focus, that determination, dedication to know that like they can apply that outside of sports and for their future too.
Yeah. I mean, as you're saying that, like what's going off for me is like, as a parent, that is really my main job. Like, I'm not there to make them a better, whatever, fill in the blank player on the field. I'm there to notice, okay, what can we learn from playing on this team or not? Maybe it's an individual sport, whatever. In this activity, what can I help my little human grasp to carry on, like to the rest of life?
Yeah. 1% of high school athletes are going to go on to play collegiately.
Yeah.
1%. So if we take that pressure off, not ourselves and of our kid, and be like, how can I make this experience, whatever it is, whether it be 1 year, if they've done it for 12 years or whatever, like how can I make it the best it could be for the likelihood that it's going to be over for them? Like it will be over before maybe they want it to be over, but statistically speaking, like it probably be over by the time they're 17 or 18.
Yeah.
The lucky ones, the 1%, will get to go play through college. Well, then the numbers dip even more to be able to take it to the next professional level. So like, what is the goal for them? Is it, to be able to coach them through struggle, teaching them resilience, because those are the things that they're going to apply to life. And those are the things that sports can teach you.
Yeah. Let's throw out some more. So just resilience, I think of that as a bouncy ball. I learned to kind of metabolize a perceived failure and come back and try again. I think another one is just the ability to work with people, kind of collaborate towards a common goal, is a beautiful thing to take from sports. What else? What's coming to your mind?
So yeah, the teamwork, resilience. I think advocacy is also something really hard to do, to be able to say, hey, if that's an issue, like go talk to your coach, advocate.
Oh yes, girl.
For your
That's
needs.
good.
And like that takes a lot of coaching and can take a lot of like encouragement from an adult to walk, to like show what that can look like. I think so many people are afraid of like conflict. And I'm like, it's, if you think of it as like conflict as a negative, then you would be intimidated by it. But like conflict is really just like an opportunity for more communication. So if you go into that hard conversation to say, coach, like, what can I do? What can I work on to be able to like get more playing time, to move up in the starting lineup, to, you know, change positions or whatever, and to advocate and just have that conversation. So that, you know, that's a skill that we, you know, as adults, we have to have hard conversations all the time, and we all have different levels of comfort around them. But if we are normalizing it at a young age, just and coach these kids, and is saying like, you can do that respectfully. You don't have to go into it and say like questioning the coach and what their game plan is. You do get the opportunity to have a conversation to say, what can I do? Because at the end of the day, that's all you can really control.
Yeah, that's so good. That's a good one. Talk about okay, before we do that, I think we've covered some great ground, like for parents. I think for sure, like, for lack of a better way of saying this, as parents, we've got to check ourselves. We've got to be willing to kind of deconstruct the memos that we're getting from society and from our neighborhoods and from what everyone else is doing, and just ask the question, is this right for us? Is this what we should be doing? Are we happy? You know, those types of things. Being able to see and identify what's going on with our kids, really being tuned in. And to me, you can't really see what's going on with other people unless you do that first step of like slowing yourself down and looking inside of here, what's going on inside of here. Once I kind of have a little bit of a grasp on that, then I'm able to kind of see what's going on with other people a little bit more clearly and with more love and attunement. From there, let's talk about for the athlete. Okay. We've talked about just some great life skills that come from playing. Let's flesh those things out a little bit. And I'm curious, as we kind of zone in here a little bit on sports related anxiety, what are some of kind of the common threads or common themes that you see in your office that come up for kids in this area?
The performance anxiety is really, I think, rooted in the idea that of a perfectionism mindset that somewhere along the lines, it has been not okay to fail. So when that pressure comes on to perform and to be perfect, especially in some sports where you're mostly going to be failing, I'm thinking of baseball in particular, like there's a lot, the failure rate is very, very high. And if you feel like you have to like be perfect in every time, then like you're going to be anxious every time you step on the field. The pressure of being perfect is going to cause them to freeze up. It's going to cause them to play tight. And we know that the tighter you play generally is not going to produce, or you're not going to play your best because you're uptight. And should you be focused? Yes. So it's not like a loosey-goosey. It's very much a focus, but also saying the more uptight I get, the more I'm worried about like being perfect, the worse I'm going to play. So connecting the dots, be like, how can you play loose, play focused, but just be relaxed out there? And what that, like, what are you enjoying yourself out there? I mean, I always bring it out to that. Like, this should be a fun experience to you. If it's not fun, then like that's a good opportunity to kind of look inward to be like, why isn't it fun for you anymore? Because when that joy leaves, then it's hard to kind of like get back into a place where they can give it their all, they can focus, because they just don't want to anymore.
And I think that translates, like, I'm just thinking about for me, even in the therapy room, like if I am just like so focused on like doing everything the right way and like, you know, following A to B to B to C to B, and I'm ignoring like my intuition in the space, you know, like to me, that's kind of what we're talking about on the field. When we are focused on clinically doing things right in the space, but we're also like, we're in the space, you know, we're feeling the space. We're using our intuition in the space. We're moving freely in the space. So it's the same on the field. Like I'm still thinking about my skills that I've put in, and that was me throwing to first base. Did you see that? I fielded and yes, that is, yeah. So I'm in the game fundamentally doing the things that I need to do. I think this is also where experience and practice come into play. The more repetition we put in practice, the more our bodies have done the movement, then we are able to kind of let go and riff a little bit off of that expertise. Yeah. But it takes courage initially, I think, to step out of that. And if you're getting pressure and, it's like when I had Coach Elton on a few weeks ago, she talked about who are you listening to? What do those voices sound like around you? So even as a player, to be able to kind of learn, boundary of, is somebody like making my candle a little brighter, kind of growing that confidence in me, or every time I'm around this person and they're talking to me, am I feeling a little bit less confident myself? Like not giving that confidence to other people is a great way to battle that. But I think those things, that perfectionistic driver, certainly can show up in every single part of life if we don't learn how to notice it and put it in its proper place.
Yeah, I completely agree. What you just said about what you can do, it makes me think about those times when you're not in it for whatever reason, just you don't have it that day. And so identifying what can I do to still support my team. And so when you're in that funk, when they're in that place where they're not playing well, maybe they're on the bench, guess what you can do? You can be a really good teammate. You can be encouraging. The more you lift up someone else, you're going to feel better. So we know that innately with human beings, the more we serve others, the more that we are going to, really find that joy inside, even though if that's not the intention. And so really looking outward if they are super inward, that's one of the first things I encourage them to do is who can you help?
Yeah.
You're a senior. What freshman can you lift up today to be able to encourage them who maybe they're struggling and they're having self-doubt, and you've had all these years of experience, get out of your own way to be able to lift up someone else if that's not your space. So recognizing that, more of that kind of holistic view of looking outward is also a great tool and something easy for them to do right away.
Yeah, 100%. That makes me think of just verbalization, being vocal, on the field as well. I think sometimes, and I know I've got body language written down here as well, just behaviorally, I think there are some things that athletes can do to get out of your own head, get out of your own kind of negative spiral if you're in one. I think those things are sometimes even saying out loud, the opposition to what you're thinking, we got this, let's go, we can do this, out loud to the team. But you're also saying it to yourself,
the self-talk and encouragement, because if that little voice in your head is that perfectionist, it's going to be inclined to be you just messed up.
Oh yeah.
You just did that. They're going to point out all the bad things. Well, if you're looking at a game in its entirety, unless you're playing a single sport, which is a whole different kind of bag of mental, if you're a player or something like that, when it's just on you. But if you're playing a team, it's not just you. And so don't make it about just you.
Yeah.
It's, that too, just giving yourself the freedom to say, I'm one part of this and I have a role to play. What's my role? And if that can ebb and flow, but also being able to recognize I can still contribute in ways that can be encouraging. My attitude. So the body language, being someone that if you are on the sidelines, you're not looking closed off, you're looking ready to play. You're not, so your body language, it's not just telling your teammates how you're feeling, it's telling your coach. Yeah. So you want to keep sitting there, look not ready to play.
Yeah.
quiet, you know,
That's
and
right.
not be available. Like if they're looking down and they're seeing who they have available and you're crossed up and looking kind of pouty because you're not playing, well, they may look right past you. So the body language, if you're on the sidelines and then you're on the field, to where if you do mess up, you gotta move on. I mean, that is part of the game. And so
Yeah.
they can get in our heads about like messing up. It's taking you out of your, I guess, would be flow. And that's
Yeah.
where you really want to be in.
Yeah. So in-game things, let's just throw out. So I think what you're just talking about is just really fighting to stay in the moment, not carrying the last play or possession into the current one. What are some other things? We did also just talk about the energy of body language. No matter if you're on the side or on the field, you're bringing some kind of energy to the space with the way that your body is in the space, the way that your facial expression is in the space. Those things matter to whether I'm bringing the energy down or I'm contributing to it in a positive way. What are some other things like in game for kids?
Um, if they start to like wander in their thoughts, or if they kind of get in their heads, zeroing in on if it's the ball and like
Yeah.
really focusing their attention on like the details where the ball's going. So for example, like if it was soccer, to be able to like, do not take your eye off the ball,
Mm,
follow the ball. And what that's going to do is it's going to reset their brain to be able, like, I mean, it's more of symbolic too. Like, why am I out here? And in
mm,
soccer, it's about the ball, right?
yeah.
So
Yeah.
follow the ball, like recenter your focus onto something. So then your mind can be like, help you kind of support what you're trying to do. And then your body starts to do what it's been trained to do. So going back to what you said, is like the preparation that can lead to the confidence that like you've done this, like you've done it,
Yeah.
especially for the older ones. The younger ones, that looks a little bit different. But like if you've been playing that sport for a long time, like it should just come. So like if your mind is blocking you from that, zeroing in
Yeah.
on the object can help reset that, so your body can just kind of go into not autopilot, but what it's been trained to do.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think about routines. Like I'm thinking about my sport. Like, when someone goes to the free throw line, every time for me, I would do the same thing: flip, 3 dribbles, roll it back into my hands and shoot it. And that like was a resetting of my mind to focus in on what we need to do. I think about sometimes when athletes write things on their glove,
Mm-hmm.
so that like I'm looking at my glove and I got a reminder to refocus. Or even on the bat, like I know my kids have like a dot on their bat that just helps them before they get to the plate. They see that dot. That's a reminder to take a breath, and kind of come to center. But these type of, and even you think about like someone who comes to the plate they have a routine before the pitchers have a routine. Um, those kind of physical routines kind of do that same resetting for us, I think.
Yeah. I think that's too of just like why a lot, having scripture too, reminding
Mm-hmm.
themselves of like really what they're doing. And so if it is an opportunity to look down and read your favorite verse, if it is an
Yeah.
opportunity to just have that in your mind, for if
Mm-hmm.
you are in a place where you can't really like look down and read anything, you're like, this is my go-to. This is going to bring me peace. It's going to bring me a sense of calm, inviting
Yeah.
like the Holy Spirit into that game,
Yeah.
and relying on that way, and to really, as a parent, to be able to give that to your kids, to say like,
Yeah.
let's pick this, let's remember that like God gets to be in every part of our lives, and like let's
Mm-hmm.
have him here too. And if he's
Yeah.
not here, like what are some like reminders that we can have to bring him in and to kind of refocus ourselves too.
Yeah, that's so good. And also with that faith element coming into it, it kind of helps us zoom out a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
We realize even as we're like that reminder comes of faith is like, okay, this is a lot bigger than, this game or this moment, takes the focus a little bit off of us, which is good, I think. Okay, let me see. Anything else coming up for you for in-game things for players?
The mental side, the encouraging, so being also on, I've already touched on that, but I really just believe in the power of your words. So
yeah,
it's in your head to be able to speak that out into other
yes,
people.
girl,
And
yes.
to be that person that is not the person that's like, do this better, but like everybody wants the person that is like the encouraging. Like you can be someone of authoritative position. You can have someone of experience, and the quickest way to lose respect from your teammates and your coaches is to be the person that's always telling you what you've done wrong.
Yeah.
And so being the voice, but being the voice with intention behind it, to be like, okay, this can be a really heated moment, but I'm going to be that voice that is encouraging.
Yeah.
And because that's what I believe. Like, that's what I know that I want. I don't need this person to point out what I just did wrong. Because guess what? It's a lot worse. It's probably 10 times worse in their own head than someone else could even attempt to say. So
Yeah.
Staying in the lane of like encouraging words to others and to yourself. So offering that you do mess up, back to perfectionism, knowing that like that's part of it. And there's always an opportunity to grow and learn. And there's no one sports player that could ever say, there's nothing more I can learn. There's nothing, I'm the best at every single thing. I can't grow. Even the best of the best, LeBron James, he still works probably harder than most people and still is focused in a way to where he's not settled because he's been great for so long. So being able to look at some of those people, like they've reached the pinnacle, but they are still grinding. They are still working hard. And if there's anything that I want my kids to take away from it, is just like that work ethic. And whether it be in sports and life, that like you have to work hard for really anything that's good.
Yeah. I think that, go ahead.
No, and I say, and we want quick fixes now. And especially the young people, and to where I feel fortunate, I'm like, I have that kind of grinder mentality still. And our kids will have that because we won't allow them to feel like everything is going to be handed to them, because that's not real life. And at some point, it's going to catch up to them and give them and have a disservice as a young adult or an adult.
Yeah, that's so good. I think that work ethic piece is, it's hard. It's hard to teach it. No one wants to do the work. But it's like that Kobe mentality of, it really comes down to who's putting the time in, who's doing the work. And I think the other thing you touched on there with the encouragement piece, like, I think for me, I want my kids to just be people who are looking around. This is what we talk to them about when they go to school. On the way to school, almost every morning, we say, look around, like, does someone need picked up? Go pick them up. Like, that's the people we want to be, are the people who are looking around on the field, off the field. I want to be trying to, and someone sent me a little TikTok video this morning about like, as we don't lose a flame by lighting somebody else's candle. It doesn't take away, that old saying, like, it's true. Like, there's enough flame to go around, and so we've got to be people who are constantly just trying to help people realize, just pick your teammates up. Like, that's what you're here for verbally. I was thinking about, on Harper's soccer team, there's a girl that's just a great defender. She's typically like kind of all the way in the back line. Forgive me, I do not know anything about like soccer positions, but she's closest to the goalie. And Harper's kind of more on the offensive side. And so this kid is so encouraging, and she is a great soccer player. Like, she can see the whole field too, and she's able to kind of help people kind of see what they need to do. And I just have this memory of her coming to Harper in between time and just popping her arm around her real quick and just like saying something and then patting her. And I know she's just saying like, you got this. So that there can be an element of, hey, next play, try this. You got it. Let's do it. That is like leadership in its purest form. Like, we're able to kind of help people redirect while saying, I believe in you. You know, we're giving them that fuel of like, I believe in you. You got this. Come on, we got it. So the way that we say things, I think, is so
matters.
key. Yeah, it matters. It matters. Okay. I want to talk for a second about pregame tools, and specifically, I want to touch on visualization for athletes, and then I want to transition into really landing the plane talking about parents and coaches and tools for them. So, talk to me about pregame tools for athletes who might be dealing with some stress or anxiety around sports.
Probably the biggest, most important thing would be your breath work. And simple as it sounds, but like those just like big, deep belly breaths, we know just helps settle. And so teaching them that, like what that can look like, also teaching them some ways to like kind of have the focus. So, using your box breathing to where you're in, out, they can do discreetly, because if there are nerves before a game, they don't want anyone to know about it. So the breath work to really be able to like kind of focus in and visualizing to what they are wanting from the game, looking like, how am I going to play? Like, I'm going to put myself out there. And if I am like a single sport person, like if I'm a swimmer, I'm going to visualize myself coming off the blocks and focusing in on like, what have I been working hard at in practice? Has it been that like first, 10-second kick? Is it been my finishing ability? Like, not breaking it down into like, what's one thing that I'm going to be focusing in on? There's a million things that need to come together to, have your maximum performance, but like, what's one thing? Because collectively it can overwhelm some people, some kids too. But being able to like zero in on one thing, in addition to the breath work before the game starts, before that they like need to perform, and to give some of those like positive affirmations and like to yourself, because they may not get it from any other person. So being able to have like an affirmation that they say before every game, have that routine, can settle the nerves or just like even a potential like lack of confidence that they may be feeling.
Yeah, I think that's so good. I think about too, like the neuropathway work that happens at that time. If you're really being intentional about settling in on like a positive cognition and breathing and letting yourself come to a calm space, and then just really focusing on whatever it is that affirmation is for you. And then I like just maybe zeroing in on one aspect of the game, and just visualizing yourself succeeding there, over and over. That's doing something in the brain. It's relaxing the body, but it's also building a little mini highway in the brain of like, oh, I can do this. I am a good player. Like, I've seen myself do this a million times if I'm practicing seeing that positive thing happen. And so I'm not surprised when it happens. I'm expectant of that happening.
Prepared for it.
Yeah. Okay. So let's talk a little bit about just tips for parents, and we can kind of break it down a little bit if you want, like pregame, during, and after. But if I want to really support my child well and kind of help them build this confidence, help be a safe place for them, what are some things I can do just practically?
Aside from just checking yourself, we've already kind of gone over that, to be able like, where am I showing up? How am I showing up in this space? For the younger ones, really just at first taking notice of how they're reacting to like what you're currently doing. So like in the car ride to the game, if you're trying to talk about the game, what are they doing? Are they listening? Are they participating? Or would they rather like jump out of the car? So sign that like they may be on their heads, maybe they're nervous about it, and that's the last thing that they need to do is be talking about with their parent, because you also have to trust that they're going to get there and let the coach do their job in getting them here. So recognizing kind of like what they're already giving you, whether it be before the game, but definitely after the game. And you said something before we kind of started recording, and I think it's the perfect response after the game is, I loved watching you play.
Yeah.
Period.
We
don't have to dissect the game.
Yeah.
It or not. We don't have to do it. And it is very, very tempting.
And it's very difficult not to. Yeah.
Very difficult not to. And there may be a time and place where we can circle back. Most athletes are going to say after the game is not that time or place.
Yeah.
They're going to say that, especially the older ones who kind of now have noticed. And that could turn into anger. Like there could turn into like a big issue surrounding that.
Yeah.
The younger ones will probably just be quiet and they may give you your
Yeah.
But like what they're really feeling is like, does not feel good to me right now. Like I don't really want to be talking about this. The older ones are probably going to express that more, and it could come out as anger, which can be confusing because you're only trying to help them.
Yeah. Yeah.
But maybe that's not maybe that's not our role in that. And it could be after you've gotten showered. If they're hungry, like let them eat, let them decompress. And then if you want to open up the conversation, it's like, hey, you want to talk about the game?
Yeah. Ask the question. Do you want to talk about it? Yeah.
They get to say yes or no. And then maybe they ask you, maybe you are that parent that's like really close and they come to you and they want to know. But be weary of that, because with that, they then internalize that like they have to perform to earn your love.
Yes.
They have to do well for you to be happy. And so the more you invest in it as a parent, there's a fine line, because that's what will take that from them. So looking at the relationship as a whole, like how much am I putting into this? Like, and that sport might take up your whole life, but the child can't feel like that's the most important thing to you.
Right.
So having to verbalize that over and over and over again so that they can really feel that and believe it coming from you is going to be something that's like really important, especially as they get older and if they are potentially in like a really competitive situation, to know that like your support, your love is not tied to their performance.
That's so good. And that's where my mind was going to, is we have to be so cognizant of like how we are reacting to their performance, because they know, they can sense that. And so if they feel any disappointment from us because of how they've done on the field, or even on the other side, if we're just like so pumped overly when they've had a great performance, like that can be tied to kind of a deeper belief system of I have to perform to please people, or to feel love or to feel approval. And so to really be conscious of, no matter what, like what I want to communicate to my kids is, it doesn't matter like if you win or lose, if you play well or you don't play well. I love watching you do this because I know you love it and you're learning and growing, and it's a joy for me to be out here and to be with you while you're doing what you like doing. And I'm riding the highs and lows with you, and I'm here for you, and it doesn't matter to me like how you perform. Like I want them to hear those words come out of my mouth. That I'm here. I'm here for the ride,
That's what it is.
Yeah. It is. Yeah.
Those and I'm giving yourself affirmations as a parent. Like you need to have an affirmation and a mantra too, to remind yourself, or have that person that like, or even a great opportunity to like, if you are tempted to direct and coach and correct, then figure out an outlet that's not your kid.
Yeah.
Don't let it be that outlet. Like it may not be your spouse, it may not be your partner, it might not be your friend, like, but that's what paper and pen's for.
Yeah.
Type that out. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
If you got to get it out, if it's not, helpful, but like, you're feeling it. We don't want to ignore that, because those feelings are real. And but that doesn't mean that your kids have to take that on. Like it's your deal.
Yeah. And I mean, honestly, if we're being honest, like parenting in general brings up all of our own wounds, right? Like as a parent, you probably need to have your own therapist, because there are things like coming up for you as your child is suffering like perceived loss, perceived failure, perceived success, whatever it is on a daily basis, that is your own kind of, it's your own trauma too. Like your own stuff is bubbling to the surface. And so just like parenting in general, sports, I think, will bring this stuff to the surface for all of us. So we need to be aware.
Yep.
Yep. Okay. So as we're kind of landing the plane, I want you to tell people where they can find you. If they feel like, hey, I want my athlete to work with Megan, I want to we need to go deeper. I'm seeing some of these things. Where can people find you?
My website, megancannoncounseling.com, and my practice is called Megan Cannon Counseling. And I work with teens and adults. I love working with athletes. I also work with non-athletes in those areas as well. But that is a passion of mine. But my website is a great place to go learn a little bit more about me. And you can follow up with a message through my website.
Awesome. Is there anything else that's kind of coming up for you that you feel like we didn't cover that you want to say?
The first, really love and support your coaches.
Yeah.
Know that they're not doing this to make the big bucks. They're not, they might even be volunteers. So to really just how can you make the experience as a whole, not just great for your player, your kid, but also the coaches. And if you have a good coach, let's love them and nurture them so that they can keep doing what they're doing so well. As again, like I said, the burnout rate and these amazing coaches are leaving the field because they are essentially getting bullied and abused by parents, and with a lack of respect and no boundaries and this high sense of entitlement. And it's with having young kids, your eyes are open to it all. And I don't know what that will look like, but it's the role that a coach has in a player's life can be pivotal, both positive and negative. So the good ones, let's nurture that. Let's understand that they're humans and that they have lives of their own. They, and coaches, don't be afraid to create boundaries and be really strict with those, because some parents will go over that line. And so your new coach starting out, don't be afraid to start that. Don't be the guy everyone likes, or the woman everyone likes. Be what you need to be, and setting those boundaries early on will help hopefully give you a long career of doing what you love, and not feel like the pressure from parents is too much that you feel like you have to leave.
Yeah. I mean, I think that we're talking now about kind of a leadership thing, but to be able to know going in that I've got to practice self-care right off the bat, and so much of self-care is I've got to be aware of what voices I'm allowing in, and when that I'm not going to, allow that voice to come in. I can still be respectful, but I don't have to be abused. I don't have to be around people who are blowing out my flame all the time and trying to take my confidence, as a coach. So yeah, a lot of work to be done for all the people involved, adults and kids. Yeah, for sure. All right. Well, thank you, Megan. This was awesome.
Thank you. I had a great time.
I appreciate you being with me. I think this will probably warrant a part 2 at some point.